Every American evacuation guide could get you killed in Canada, and most people have no idea why. At -30, your water freezes solid, your phone loses over half its charge in minutes, and 1 in 5 Canadian highway kilometers has 0 cell coverage. 8 items separate a Canadian evacuation kit from an American one, and the first costs less than $5. A Canadian winter evacuation doesn't just test your patience, it tests your biology. When Americans evacuate, it's often into rain or mild cold. In Canada, evacuation can mean stepping into temperatures of -30, where the air itself strips heat from your body in minutes. Here, heat is not a comfort. It is the only thing that keeps your core temperature above the threshold for hypothermia. That's why official Canadian guidance from the CAA to Public Safety Canada lists matches and a survival candle as mandatory in every car kit. Montreal's emergency kit checklist even places candles and a lighter alongside food and water. The reason is simple. Without a running engine, the interior of a car can drop below freezing in less than half an hour. A single tea light placed inside a metal coffee can can raise the air around it by 6 degrees Celsius in 30 minutes, enough to slow the onset of hypothermia. Lab tests at the University of Alberta show that a coffee can heater can push the temperature up by 12 degrees in 90 minutes, even at -30 outside. The Canadian Automobile Association mandates both a lighter and a candle for winter driving. These are not backup items. They are the first line of defense when the engine dies. Marie-Claude Desjardins, safety director at CAA, calls the survival candle life support in a tin. In these conditions, calories and batteries are burned faster as your body fights to stay warm. Without a heat source, the rest of your kit, food, water, electronics, can become useless. This is where Canadian evacuation kits take their first and most vital turn away from American advice. American evacuation guides almost always list bottled water as a must-have, but in a Canadian winter, that advice can backfire. At 0 degrees Celsius, water turns to ice. A bottle left in the trunk overnight becomes a useless block, impossible to drink without a stove or hours of waiting. On Highway 11 or the Yellowhead, the next town might be 200 kilometers away. In that distance, a frozen water bottle is dead weight. Canadian experts have found a workaround. Juice pouches, formulated with about 18% sugar, stay liquid at temperatures as low as -5 degrees Celsius. Dr. Elena Kovac, a food scientist at the University of Guelph, explains that the sugar concentration changes the chemistry. The freezing point drops well below what plain water can handle. Even after a night at -15 degrees Celsius, these pouches remain pourable. That means you can drink straight from the pack, no melting, no wasted time. But there's another advantage. Each pouch contains around 120 kilocalories of glucose. In deep cold, the body burns calories at double or triple its normal rate just to stay warm. Liquid sugars are absorbed quickly, fueling shivering and keeping core temperature stable. Kovacs notes that a single pouch can double shivering output in the first hour, buying time until help arrives. In Canada, liquids aren't just for hydration. They're an energy source, critical when a stalled car means a night exposed to the elements. A stalled car on black ice in northern Ontario doesn't just mean a delay, it can mean the difference between a cold inconvenience and a survival crisis. The Canadian Automobile Association lists a bag of sand or non-clumping kitty litter as a must-have in every winter kit, yet most American guides barely mention traction at all. On a frozen shoulder with no cell signal and the temperature dropping, the only chance to escape may come down to what's in the trunk. A $5 bag of abrasive material poured under the drive wheels can turn a helpless situation into a way out. The friction coefficient for coarse sand on ice measures around 0.5, enough to let tires bite through a glaze that would otherwise keep the car locked in place. In the 2016 Saskatchewan blizzard, over 400 vehicles were stranded overnight. Search and rescue logs from that storm show that drivers who carried sand or kitty litter were able to self-extricate and reach safety, cutting their rescue time by about 30% compared to those who waited for help. Constable Paul MacArthur, who led the SAR team that night, reported that mobility was the single biggest factor in preventing hypothermia and exposure injuries. Getting the car unstuck isn't just about convenience. It can mean reaching a cell coverage zone, a town, or a heated shelter before the cold becomes life-threatening. In Canadian winter, traction isn't an afterthought, it's a lifeline. A flashlight that works every time isn't just handy in a Canadian winter, it's essential. The Canadian Automobile Association insists on hand crank models for a reason. Lithium batteries can't be trusted when the mercury drops. In 2023, CAA-funded lab tests revealed that standard lithium-ion flashlights lost over half their brightness at minus 30 degrees Celsius. Some batteries dropped below half their rated capacity, with voltage sag causing beams to flicker or fail within minutes. In a blackout, that means no light to signal, search, or navigate. Crank-powered flashlights avoid this trap. With a few turns, they deliver a steady 300 lumens, no matter how cold it gets, and never run out as long as you can wind. Marie-Claude Desjardins at CAA calls them the only light source that will never quit in a minus 35 degrees Celsius freeze. Phones face a different threat. In sub-zero weather, batteries drain twice as fast. Cold slows the chemistry, and a phone left exposed can die in under an hour. Canadians keep phones inside insulated sleeves or pressed to base layers, gaining up to 15 degrees of warmth and stretching battery life by 40%. But even with these tricks, a phone can still fail. When both light and navigation vanish, the critical margin for error disappears. Across Canada's highways, cell coverage is far from certain. On the Trans-Canada, in the Yukon, and throughout British Columbia, the signal can vanish for hours. 21% of national highway distance is a cellular dead zone over a fifth of the country's main roads. In British Columbia, that figure climbs to 32%. Newfoundland and Labrador face 38% of major routes with no coverage. The Globe and Mail's 2023 investigation traced stretches over 100 kilometers without a single bar. For those stranded in these gaps, a phone offers no help at all. Canadian authorities now recommend carrying a personal locator beacon, or PLB, in every evacuation kit. Unlike a phone, a PLB transmits a distress signal directly to the Cospus SARSAT satellite system on the 406 MHz frequency. When activated, it sends GPS coordinates and a unique ID straight to search and rescue teams, bypassing cell towers entirely. The impact is immediate. Public Safety Canada and RCMP statistics show average rescue times in cell-free zones drop from 78 minutes to under 30 minutes with a PLB, a 60% reduction. In a 2022 Northern Quebec rescue, a PLB cut the wait to just 28 minutes. Constable Paul MacArthur calls the beacon the single lifeline when all else fails. False alarms are rare, and registration is quick. In Canada's blind spots, a PLB is the only guarantee that help will find you. When a Canadian driver is stranded in deep cold, the body's fight for survival turns into a race against time and biology. In a car that's lost power, the temperature inside can plummet to minus 30 within an hour. At those temperatures, a resting adult burns through about 350 calories every hour just to shiver and keep core temperature up. That's more than triple the energy needed in a mild United States winter storm. A single granola bar with its 120 calories is gone in half an hour of shivering. Official guidance from the Canadian Armed Forces and provincial emergency planners is clear. Emergency food in a Canadian kit must be high in fat and protein, dense enough to supply at least 3,500 calories per day. Peanut butter packets, chocolate-covered nuts, and dense energy bars, each delivering 250 calories in a 30-gram serving, become the backbone of survival, not just snacks. It's not about comfort food, it's about fuel for the body's internal furnace long enough to outlast the cold. But calories alone won't keep the cold out. Insulation is the final barrier. Mylar sheets, so common in American kits, reflect heat but offer little real protection once the body cools. Wool, by contrast, traps air even when wet, retaining up to 30% of its insulating power in damp conditions. A single wool blanket, rated at 4 Clo, can keep a seated adult from dropping below the hypothermia threshold for hours, even at minus 35. That's why Canadian auto clubs and government checklists insist on full wool blankets and extra clothing for every passenger. In a real-world breakdown, it's not just about waiting for rescue, it's about creating a microclimate where every calorie burned stays close and every layer buys another hour of safety. These last two items, fuel for the body and true insulation for the night, complete the Canadian survival pyramid, turning a kit from a list of supplies into a real plan for making it through the longest, coldest night. Tonight, thousands cross Canadian highways with kits built for another country. In the cold, comfort is a luxury. Heat, traction, and power are survival. Advice that ignores local risks can cost lives. The real emergency is assuming one checklist fits all. Out here, adaptation isn't optional, it's life or death.